Apostasy is a brand new, small film that you've almost definitely not heard of before, and it follows a small family who are coming to terms and are struggling to grasp certain aspects of their religion, and their religion being Jehovah's Witnesses. The movie stars Siobhan Finneran, as well as a few other mostly unknown actors, and is directed by Daniel Kokotajlo. I've probably butchered that, but yeah, that's his name. So I'm going to start off by being really honest. Before watching this film, I had no idea what a Jehovah's Witness was. I only knew the name, and that was about it. I didn't really know what their beliefs consisted of, or whether they were just a subsection of Christianity. I didn't really know much about them. But luckily, and one thing I have to praise this movie for, is that after watching this film, I think I have a better understanding of what their beliefs are and how they go about worshipping them. And I definitely think whenever a movie can do that, take a subject that I don't know much about and inform me about it, I think that's definitely a praise from the filmmaking aspect, because I mostly get that with documentaries, if it's an area that I'm not 100% clear in, and I'm usually informed by the end. But to see it in a drama is quite refreshing. I didn't know much about Jehovah's Witnesses, but now I think I do have a better grasp of what they stand for. I personally thought that Apostasy was a really nice change of pace from the movies we're getting recently, such as Mission Impossible or Avengers. And as much as I like those movies, it's nice to watch some of these smaller, more dramatically infused movies, because it's smaller movies like this anyway, for me at least, that kind of confirm why I love movies so much. Everything from the little details to just how certain things are done in this movie really make me appreciate filmmaking a lot more than I do when I watch some of these bigger movies. Which is why over the last few years when I've been reviewing films, I've tried to point out some of these smaller movies for you guys to check out, because a lot of these go under the radar, and I feel like Apostasy is going to be one of those movies, because it does a really good job of taking a really tricky topic to talk about, that topic being someone or a group of people being shunned by their religion, and making it feel very intimate and personal without ever aggressively pointing the finger at the people who believe in that religion or the people who don't. And I suppose this comes from someone, again, like I said, who doesn't know the religion that well. So as I was watching the movie, I was kind of at a level playing field when watching these events take place, and that's probably the biggest praise I can give this movie. It goes about such a controversial topic, I suppose you can say, especially considering the religion it's based around, and it goes about handling it in the most personal and dramatic way possible, and I really like the way they did it in this movie, and especially seeing that this is the guy's directorial debut is, again, really impressive, because first of all, to choose such a interesting topic for your first feature film is pretty ballsy, and seeing that this guy is an ex-Jehovah's Witness himself, I can kind of understand why he wanted to tell this movie, because there is a lot to talk about in terms of this religion and how certain people deal with it. And like I said, I think the movie does a good job of, for the most part, showing a pretty plain level perspective on the whole thing. It doesn't aggressively point the fingers at the people who believe in the religion, but also doesn't entirely make the people leaving that religion look like bad people either. It does a good job of balancing the two out, so you can kind of understand where both sides are coming from. But in the end of the day, you do feel for the main family more, because you are following them throughout the movie more than you are with the other characters in the Jehovah's Witness community. And yeah, just everything really comes together to make this whole thing work way better than it should. You have some incredibly understated camera work that really works in the situation's favour, really bringing out the emotion in certain scenes. But then again, you also have 3 lead performances that are utterly compelling to watch. The 3 main women in this movie, the mum and her 2 daughters, really pretty much drive the movie. And again, I wasn't watching this movie from a religious aspect per se, because again, I didn't really know much about Jehovah's Witnesses, but instead I watched it from a filmmaking perspective, and to see whether it could fully translate its messages and personal feel in an effective way through the medium of film, and I think it did that in the best possible way it could have done. Other than the fact that the director has gone for a very hard to talk about subject for his first film, I also think that from a directing standpoint, he shows a lot of confidence and control in the way he goes about directing scenes. Nothing feels overly flashy or, stylistic about the way it's directed. It just feels very personal and intimate in the best possible way. And for a film like this, I think it has to be like that. And I just have to praise him on the highest level, because though there are quite a few close-ups in this movie, it works for the sake of that intimacy which I was just talking about. And the amount of control he has as a director makes me really interested to see what he does in the future. I don't quite know how he's going to top a subject matter like this, but I still would like to see where he takes these similar ideas and a similar kind of feel to this movie, and how he translates it to future projects. So yeah, I really am interested to see what he does in the future, because I think he is a director to look out for. If I had to find a flaw with this movie, then I suppose the only nitpick I have is its pacing. This movie isn't going to be for everyone, seeing that it is a very slowly paced film, but I'm okay with that if the pacing warrants something. For example, the original Alien is a very slowly paced movie, but it works to build up the tension, and I think the pacing here works well, again, to build up certain scenarios and to emphasise that drama and emotional aspect a bit more. That being said, there are 1 or 2 moments throughout the film where the pacing does drag ever so slightly. Apart from that, it does keep a consistent pace that did keep me engaged for the most part. If this movie sounds like your thing, then I highly recommend you give it a chance, because I don't think enough people are talking about this movie. I suppose it is something to do with its subject matter, but I really wanted to talk about this movie because I think from a filmmaking perspective, it did its job as well as it could have done without really crossing any controversial lines per se. In the end, I'm going to give Apostasy an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, I viewed this movie from a filmmaking and acting perspective, not necessarily from the religious aspect which the film focuses on. But after the film was finished, I did have a better understanding of what the religious aspect was. So it was only till the film had finished that I kind of knew what it was trying to get at. And I still think it did a good job of showing these events happen from a very neutral standpoint. Yeah, you do end up feeling for certain characters more than others, but in regards to who's in the right and who's in the wrong, whether that be the Jehovah's Witnesses or the family, I think it shows it from as neutral of a playing field as it could have done. So you can kind of watch this movie from 2 different perspectives and still find a lot to like about this movie in the end. So guys, that was my review of Apostasy. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, If this sounds like your thing, then I highly recommend you check it out, because hardly anyone's talking about it, and I think it's a real shame. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.